Greetings and salutations, fellow book readers. This is Mark, and the book I will review today is Oblomov. I read the English translation and also listened to the audiobook of the original version in Russian, and no Russian classic sounds as good as it does in its original language. Before we continue, this is a personalized limited edition of Oblomov with leather cover designed and made by me. At the end of the video, I will tell you a couple of ways of how you can get one for yourself if you're interested. Now let's get back to the review. Oblomov is an 1859 Russian novel written by Ivan Goncharov. It is his most successful novel and one that left a permanent mark on Russian society and gave the book, but not so much Goncharov, literary immortality. Goncharov was a public servant who wrote part-time, producing 3 novels over the 8 years he was alive. And this was probably the reason he never reached the fame of his contemporaries, Turgenev, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, who perhaps were not more talented writers than he, but much more prolific in their output. What is Oblomov about? It is about consequences of refusing to grow up and to take responsibility for one's own life. Basically, it is a rejection of adulthood and because of it existing in a state of somewhat perpetual inactivity, which causes chronic depression and paranoia. When you don't know what you are living for, you don't care how you live from one day to the next. You are happy the day has passed and the night has come, and in your sleep, you bury the tedious question of what you lived for that day and what you are going to live for tomorrow. The book is a satirical description of a type of 19th century social illness prevalent among Russian upper classes, where the person inflicted with it was referred to as a superfluous man. A bit of the plot. The book follows the adult life of Ilya Ilyich Oblomov, who is an owner of a country estate but resides in St. Petersburg. First, I will mention a few other characters central to the story. There is Zakhar, Oblomov's servant, then Andrei Stolz, who is Oblomov's childhood friend, Olga, Oblomov's love interest, Agafia Pshenitysina, his latter landlady, and Tartaniev, a false friend who himself is not that important except for really making visible Oblomov's tragic personality. The story takes place in the mid-19th century and is told by a third-person, active narrator who seems to be Goncharov himself. In the beginning of the book, we are introduced to Ilya Ilyich Oblomov, who resides with his servant Zakhar in a rented apartment in St. Petersburg. His only source of income is an inherited country estate with 300 serfs, which because of his inactivity and lack of interest is badly mismanaged and over time puts a strain on his finances. Oblomov spends most of his time indoors and mostly laying down, either in bed or on his living room sofa, sleeping, eating, daydreaming or arguing with Zakhar. He is visited by a few acquaintances and a conversation with each one of them discloses Oblomov's different personality traits. Later, through the daydream Oblomov has about his childhood, we are shown the whys or the reasons behind who he has become. In the next part, we are introduced to Andrei Stolz, Oblomov's childhood friend and only real friend he has. Stolz tries to motivate Oblomov to change his life by insisting both of them take a long trip abroad, and later he introduces him to his friend Olga. Stolz leaves the country, but before it he gets Oblomov to promise he will eventually join him and instructs Olga to look after Oblomov during his absence. Over time, the two of them develop a semi-romantic relationship which becomes difficult and somewhat complicated because of Oblomov's eccentric behavior. During that time, Oblomov moves and befriends his landlady and her brother, which further complicates his romantic and financial life. Eventually, Oblomov's life kind of sorts itself out, perhaps in an unexpected direction, but probably it was kind of predictable. And that's the basic plot. What did I think about Oblomov? The novel is one of the masterpieces of the classic literature and a window into the 19th century Russian upper classes. The very people and their behaviors and attitudes that were the reasons for the Russian revolutions in the early 20th century and following the demise of the Russian Empire. And Oblomov is presented as the symbol of their decadence, a useless turtle living in his protective shell and occasionally, out of the necessity, coming out of it. There is no movement in his life and he is slowly decaying. Oblomov is a description of what at the time was referred to as a superfluous man, the character type written about by Pushkin, Turgenev and Dostoevsky, but I think it was Goncharov who gave us the best depiction of it, and made it into an icon and a symbol which left a permanent mark on a Russian language through the term Oblomovism, which is used to describe Oblomov-like qualities in a person. Oblomov is not described, but rather he discloses himself through his actions, or more so through his inactions and dialogues with and between other characters. Oblomov is a perpetual child, not in a playful Peter Pan way, but a short-sighted one, unwilling to look far enough into the future to take responsibility and do what is necessary to secure his livelihood. Just like a child, he focuses on very immediate and short-term satisfaction, which he supplements with pleasurable daydreams, where he is an interesting and proactive hero, contrary to his reality, where he is bored all the time, since he never developed any interests or hobbies. Through the chapter titled Oblomov's Dream, Goncharov gives the roots of Oblomov's behavior, which basically were overprotective parents, especially the mother, whose only visible pleasure was to serve her little prince. The dream also describes his childhood home, the estate of Oblomovka, which is portrayed a bit as an utopic paradise, perhaps not so beautiful, but happy, slow-moving, and without any surprises, and above all, secure from the world's problems. Later, the impact of his ever-present childhood is beautifully displayed when Oblomov is more attracted to his ever-serving landlady than to Olga, and he stares at her large, motherly breasts. The landlady is the incarnation of the mother figure he has been searching for since his own mother's death. He seems to be in love with Olga, perhaps because she is a reflection of himself, but logically knows she is high maintenance and as useless as he is, and a relationship with her would create too much pressure on his inactive lifestyle. So it is security over love and motherly tenderness over physical relationship. And above all, the landlady offers him an environment where he can continue his idle existence. Oblomov feels relaxed with the landlady and under no pressure since she has no expectations for him. He feels, subconsciously, what she offers is something similar to the unconditional motherly love without any judgment, and with her he can be himself, an adult child. The reason for the landlady's behavior seems to be that she is an eternal servant with a need for a master to serve and sacrifice herself for. And sacrifice herself for. But Olga is a different animal. She is told by Stolz to look after Oblomov, and she does, but admits it is out of her love for Stolz. But with time she becomes curious about Oblomov, since he is so awkward and unorthodox in his behavior. He is also harmless and somewhat helpless, and I think because of it she feels a little sorry for him, which she confuses with love. She also leads a boring life, and Oblomov provides a bit of distraction from her daily routine. She doesn't take him very seriously and treats the whole affair as a game. Love is comedy and tragedy, and Olga couldn't resist playing cat and mouse with him, says the narrator. Olga is also an intelligent manipulator. When Oblomov writes a breakup letter to her, she is amused by it and turns its meaning around. Instead, getting angry, she lets him know she appreciates the effort he made on her behalf. And at this moment, Oblomov starts to see her as almost a godly figure and becomes her emotional slave. And that's the checkmate. Further, Olga doesn't seem to suffer and is driven more by her narcissism than any other feeling. I think it is also boredom, not love, that motivates her relationship with Oblomov. It is best said by Stolz when he says that no woman could love Oblomov. He is referring to romantic love and considers Oblomov the antithesis of it. Olga also seems a bit of a psycho, but to a man, most women do. Besides Oblomov and mentioned before, Olga and the landlady, there are a few other fascinating characters. One I found most entertaining is Zakhar, Oblomov's servant. Unlike others who are kind of supplementary to Oblomov and try to influence him, Zakhar stands on his own, even though he's the one who spends the most time with Oblomov. Zakhar is in constant friction with Oblomov and seemingly wants to be bothered as little as possible by him, but under the surface he harbors deep affection and loyalty for his master. I think the best dialogues are between the two of them. Then there is Stolz, Oblomov's childhood and only friend. He cares for Oblomov and wants to help him to change his lifestyle, which he sees as unsustainable. He says to him, "You are a philosopher, Ilya Ilyich, and you seem to be too lazy to live." Once somebody told me that there arrives a time when you need to stop philosophizing and start living. And this is basically what Stolz was trying to tell Oblomov. Stolz is a positive influence on Oblomov and tries to motivate him to do things such as read and travel. But in the end, he cannot compete with the inner Oblomov, which is unwilling to change. Stolz is half German and lives his life in an opposite manner when compared to Oblomov. He's also there to show the contrast between the more practical and calculated Western European character and the more emotional and spontaneous Russian one. Stolz himself has a dual German and Russian personality, which is displayed when he is leaving his father's estate to find his own place in the world. When saying goodbye to his father, he is very cold and formal, just like the father, but when parting from his Russian nanny, he is very emotional and affectionate with her. Taranteyev, who is a type of social parasite, has qualities similar to Oblomov, and that's why he hates him, because he hates himself. I heard that Oblomov was one of Lenin's favorite works, and if it was, I would bet Taranteyev was one of his heroes. He symbolizes the future revolutionary, individuals that go after people in power, not because they are bad, but because they reflect the negative qualities they see in themselves, such as need for power. He also hates Stolz because Stolz can see through him. Taranteyev represents what we would call today middle-class intellectuals. They see themselves as capable as the upper classes, but without their means, and with very limited opportunities to improve their social standing. Well, if you were hardworking, you could move up, but Taranteyev is lazy. He sees somebody like Oblomov, who he considers less capable than himself, but who slides through life without much effort just because of the condition he was born into. And this makes him angry and jealous, and he lacks empathy, and because of it he is not capable of compassion, so he takes advantage of Oblomov at every opportunity that presents itself, and wants to leave him with nothing. born into. And this makes him angry and jealous, and he lacks empathy, and because of it, he is not capable of compassion. So he takes advantage of Oblomov at every opportunity that presents itself and wants to leave him with nothing. The importance of Tarantayev, besides exposing Oblomov's personality, is that he represents the very people who fought and ultimately brought down the Russian political and more so social system. They were the foundation, well, maybe not foundation, since the foundation were the poor and oppressed, but they were the instigators for the future revolts, which culminated with the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. Individuals like Trotsky, Lenin, or Stalin, opportunists and violent psychopaths hungry for power. Because that's what most revolutions are. Individuals in power being replaced by ones who want power. And for the real victims, the conditions don't change much, and often become worse. I would define revolutions as a group of not very competent people being replaced by even less competent ones. Yes, I know there are exceptions. Anyway, from the political perspective, Oblomov is a symbol of a part of the society that is unwilling or even unable to change, and as a result, it disappears. A bit of a cause and effect of the evolution and revolution. To sum it up, Oblomov is a satire about Russian 19th century nobility and its slow decline, leading to the popular revolutions. And Oblomov encapsulates its causes and processes and symbolizes its existential crisis. Oblomov, from his birth, is basically dying, killing time until his demise, just like Russian upper classes were existing on borrowed time. Yeah, I know we all are slowly dying in a physical sense, but Oblomov is also dying in a philosophical sense by accepting and giving in to it. My life began by flickering out. It may sound strange, but it is so. From the very first moment I became conscious of myself, I felt that I was already flickering out. I began to flicker out over the writing of official papers at the office. I went on flickering out when I read truths in books which I did not know how to apply in life. When I sat with friends listening to rumors, gossip, jeering, spiteful, cold, and empty chatter, and watching friendships kept up by meetings that were without aim or affection. Even ambition, what was it wasted on? To order clothes at the famous tailor's, to get an invitation to a famous house, to shake hands with Prince P, and ambition is the salt of life. Where has it gone to? Either I have not understood this sort of life, or it is utterly worthless. But I did not know of a better one. No one showed it to me. What I found interesting is that the last part of the book takes place on the eve of the Crimean War. And the significance of the Crimean War is that it symbolizes the beginning of the end of the Russian Empire. Anyway, the book is a great representation of the very rich and beautiful 19th century Russian literature, even though written by a lesser-known writer. The prose, the characters, the descriptions of the places, and the dialogues make it very Russian, but the theme the book focuses on gives it a universal appeal. Oblomov is a masterpiece of Russian literature, and you should give it a try if you have any interest in the classics. A bit of advice: avoid earlier translations since it leaves the 2/3 of the original book out. The original is over 500 pages, so if the translation is 200 pages, you know it has been brutally abridged. Further, there is a pretty good 1970s Soviet adaptation of the book into film, which is a great visual reference to the novel, and I did enjoy watching it. Okay, let's talk about the physical book. The book I am holding is a paperback which I transformed into a hardcover leather-bound edition. To make the cover, I use grade A naturally tan hide I buy from a tannery in North Spain. It is the same leather Louis Vuitton uses to make his bags, so it is top quality. I do all the processing of the leather myself. First, I designed the cover, and what I did here, I took this painting of a 19th century gent somewhat uselessly lying on a couch, smoking a pipe and daydreaming about what could have been or be, only if he could muster enough energy to get off the couch. A typical Oblomov. This is the bag with the blurb, and inside front cover I printed a quote from the book. If you want to see a more detailed video where I explain how I transform paperback into leather hardcover, click on the link in the description. I will make a maximum of 100 editions of each title. Each one will be numbered and initialed, and the numbers will go in chronological order from 2 up, since number 1 stays with me. The price will be around $100, so if you would like me to make one for you, you can click below on my email and send me a message. I do not guarantee I will do it, since it will depend on the time I have available, access to leather, and if I can get my hands on the copy of the book. Now, if you're not willing to spend the $100 but you still want the book, what you can do is click below on the PayPal link and donate $3 or more to my channel, and for every 100 donations I will make a lottery and draw one name, and the winner will receive the book. So if you are cheap but feel lucky, this might be the way to do it. Also, your donations give me the extra motivation to make the book reviews, and I appreciate them very much. So thank you in advance. One more thing, when you make your donation, remember to include the title of the book you would like to win. The book itself is beautiful. Visually, it has a very nice texture, it smells great, and the more you handle it, the more beautiful it will become. And it makes a great gift for yourself or somebody who appreciates books. So if you want one, don't snooze, or you might lose. Well, that's it, so let's end it here, and until next time, keep your ear close to the ground and read a book. Adios.